Maza, thank you for joining me on the podcast.
Thank you for inviting me. It's a pleasure to be with you.
It's great and so lovely to do it in person.
Yeah,
I mean, it's lovely meeting people through screens, but this is fantastic. It makes it a bit more exciting too.
I agree.
So we're going to talk about alcohol today, lots. The good
Hopefully.
stuff, some nice wines. So you are currently the chief exec of Naked Wines, that you joined the company 2 years ago?
Yes, September 23.
He's there. You've done it. It's over 2 years.
Yes.
So look, it'd be really nice. We always like to start the podcast by giving our listeners a bit of background in terms of how you ended up being CEO of Naked Wines, to understand sort of your journey and how you're sitting here in London with me today.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I started working in beer 20 years ago. That's a lot when you say it. Back in Mexico, where I'm from originally, I worked for a company called Grupo Modelo, which was the largest brewery in the country. The owners of Corona, which everyone knows.
Corona's where I've seen that, isn't it? Yeah.
Exactly. So that's where I started my career. Worked there for 7 years. Then Grupo Modelo was acquired by AB InBev, which is the largest brewer in the world. Worked with them for 10, 11 years. First in Mexico, then Latam, then eventually moved to Europe, to Belgium. I was there for a bit over a year when I was approached by a very interesting wine company. I've never worked in wine. I've always been intrigued by it, quite intimidated by it, in all honesty.
There's a lot of history and maybe snobbery, let's be honest, in certain places.
That's something that I share with a lot of our customers, right? Like interest in a category that's quite closed and snobbish in many ways. So when I learned about the approach that Naked has on the wine category, it immediately caught my attention. The conversations went very well, and a few months later I was living in the UK, starting with Naked as the managing director for our UK business. And it was 6 months later that I was promoted to CEO. So
you realized you had the perfect marriage there, was it? Yeah. Something like that.
To be seen, hopefully.
Hey, still here, as we say, 2 years later. That's excellent. And so you came in, obviously, like you say, from a beer, alcohol background. And then when you were at InBev, was that the same? Was it a lot of the beer brands that you're working on, or was it wider stuff?
I mean, I had many roles across my 18 years with the company, right? I did strategic planning, held several commercial roles, eventually moved to retail. So started selling to consumers instead of clients, eventually moved to e-commerce, launched DTC in the region. So a very intense experience in a way, but it suited me, right? Like I need to be challenged quite often, right? To keep my spark, let's say. And I've really enjoyed just the learning that comes with taking on those challenges, those opportunities that sit outside of your comfort zone. And it has led me to bigger, better, more interesting opportunities every time. So
brilliant. It sounds like if you were needed to plan a perfect apprenticeship.
Yeah, in a way.
Because you were on the sales side, like you say, but then you moved direct to consumer, and the way that the alcohol industry's gone over the years of suddenly I've just been selling in bars and pubs, and now it's online, and now it's a perfect industry to get every experience.
I think so. It's working in beer, working in wine, it's fun, right? It's certainly very demanding, and oftentimes it's high pressure, but it's also a lot of fun. And I feel privileged to have made a career working in beer and wine.
Yeah, I think it's an important point to bring out, isn't it? We were speaking before we started recording about, I always a lot of it is how can we give advice to those next generations of what you should do when you they've nearly got more choices than we ever had.
Yeah.
And I think that is a common theme that's come through with every guest that I've had, is that try and make sure you have an interest in the area. You don't have to be passionate about it. That can grow. But just make sure you're slightly interested, so you're going to be inquisitive and to find out more.
Definitely. I mean, I loved learning about beer, going deep into like the category as a whole, the process from barley to final product, and I'm enjoying to get to experience that in wine now. And honestly, beer is simple compared to wine.
Yeah.
Wine is like a complex beast, but I'm enjoying learning, right? And something we say at Naked is you learn by tasting, right? Like you learn by trying, you figure out what you like and what you don't like on your own.
Yeah.
Right? Like you shouldn't make decisions based on what someone else decided you should like or shouldn't like, what you should have with a certain food or what you should never be paired, right? Like, no, screw that. Think for yourself, make up your own mind.
It's a very good point, but like you say, that's where that snobbery that you spoke about earlier comes in, where people go, well, you've got to have red wine with steak. And it's like, why?
Yeah.
Because history may have suggested it. I think that's wonderful, isn't it? That if you do explore and learn, and you might know the name of the wine, doesn't mean you like it.
Yeah.
Just because it's the most popular doesn't mean that you do, because your palate. And if I think about, I'm a bit older than you, and you like my love of wine when I was younger was heavy reds. As I'm getting into my mid-50s, it's a nice light red now, but I still love it, and there's still variations of, isn't there?
Yeah, and I think like there's always a time and a place and a moment and the people you're with, like all these things matter, right?
Yeah.
So I was similar to you. My family's from Spain, most of it, right? So for me, wine was Rioja.
Yeah.
That's it, right?
I mean, it's still there, Rioja, isn't it? Yeah.
I mean, I love it, right?
Yeah.
But now it's like, no, like that's a piece of
Tiny
this
area in the north of
massive
Spain.
category of all these styles, grapes, regions. Winemakers have like very specific styles as well, right? Like how they approach their craft.
Yeah.
It's so interesting to be with them, to see like the care, like the finesse that goes into their work. It's really inspiring. And I think that's something that our customers, our angels really value, right? Like it's obviously they value the product, right? Like it needs to be high quality at a fair price, but they also value the craft that's behind it, right? Like the person that's behind it. So yeah, again, it's a privilege to work at Naked and to be able to bring those stories to light and to connect wine drinkers with winemakers.
It's a good point, actually. Sometimes we forget and we assume that everybody will know about Naked Wines, and I'm sure they do. But maybe before we dig into your role and what you've been doing here, just maybe give us a bit of an overview of your offer, why Naked Wines is so special, and what drives it, which is that heroing of both the angel, you're a thing, but the winemaker themselves.
Yeah, sure thing. I mean, Naked was born out of frustration about how the wine category worked, right? So on the one hand, you had consumers that were being pushed into very specific types of wine that are mass produced, like a lack of a range, a very parochial approach of what you should like and when you should like it and how you should drink it. On the other end, the independent winemakers, their lives got harder and harder as scale was prioritized over creativity and independence, right? So Naked's model enables that direct connection between these two people, the most important people in wine. So what we ask our customers, who we call angels, is to put money into their account every month. We use that money to fund independent winemakers to produce the best wines that they possibly can, right? Like they are not pressured, like their margins are not squeezed. They aren't forced into figuring out logistics, marketing, sales, things that are not their strong suit.
Sometimes beyond them, they're just very good at making. Yeah.
Just focus on what you do best, focus on your craft. And then the wines they produce, we sell at preferential prices back to the angels, right? So it's a direct model that enables connection.
Circular model, yeah.
Exactly. And it comes down to those two key words, connection and craft, right? We connect two people, both of which place a high value on the craft of winemaking.
Yeah.
Something that's always important to clarify is that money that angels are putting into their accounts, it's not money that they never see again, right? Like that's in your account. And whenever you as an angel decide you want to buy wine,
Yeah.
those funds are yours and you use them, right? But we're not the traditional type of subscription where every month we choose certain wines and ship them your way. Again, we believe in you thinking for yourself, you figuring out what you like. So whenever the time's right for you, come in, fill your case. If you don't like a wine you tried, we'll give the credit back to you.
Yeah.
That's something that's very important to us. Like, we want to encourage
That's
discovery.
A fabulous message, especially when it's a direct business, isn't it? When you can't actually go into the shop and try a little bit.
Exactly.
It takes away that risk, and you never know what you don't know as well, do you? So you might try one and suddenly discover it's an amazing wine.
What our customers tell us, and again, like, I could certainly relate to that before coming to Naked, and even to this day, right? Like, I wouldn't say like I've done a full 180, but it's like when you're at a restaurant and you're handed the wine menu, that's not a pleasurable experience. Actually, it's quite painful, right? So the risk of like, oh, what happens if I screw this up? Like, it's front and center, right? So what we're trying to do is take away that risk. Like, even take chances, right? Like, even if you get it wrong, you're gonna get the credit back so that you can try your next bottle, but don't stop exploring. Right? So anyway, now I went in several different directions, but did I answer your question?
Oh, you sure did. Yeah, you've made me think, what am I trying next? So in terms of a business, then, it's nearly as similar to a sort of a fair trade policy, isn't it? Where you're supporting the growth of these businesses and then giving them a sales outlet back, which is just a perfect virtuous circle. So how do you continue to find great growers and great producers?
I mean, right now we're not like continuing to hunt for more winemakers to come in. We partner with over 300 of the world's most talented independent winemakers all across the world, right? So we have winemakers in South America, in California, Oregon, Washington now, all across Europe, Australia, New Zealand, right? So we have a very deep talent pool on the winemaking side. Of course, there's always something interesting happening, right? And it's often our existing winemakers that say, hey, you should meet
my mate down the road.
Because he or she, like, they're doing some amazing things, right? And we do, right? But I don't think our priority is to grow the base. It's about quality, stability, keeping those strong relationships, partnerships as strong as ever.
Yeah. So a lot of those have, I assume, that have been quite long-term relationship now, and each business has become reliant upon the other in a healthy way.
Yes, I think so. I mean, we have winemakers that have been with Naked from the moment it launched. So 15 years, now close to 16 years ago, right? So they are Naked, right? Like, you cannot tell Naked story without telling their story, right? And if we were to stop working with them, I'm sure our angels would react very negatively to that, as they should, right? Yeah. Because it's their funding, it's their belief in these winemakers that have made them what they are today, right? So
both sides recognize that.
It's there. I would say that our angels are emotionally invested in our winemakers, right? So again, like, the quality of the product, the price at which it's sold, like, that's always gonna matter, right? But the thing that keeps people being angels for years and years is that emotional connection with the winemaker, right? And I would even say with other angels, right? Yeah. Because this is a very active, engaged community that's always recommending winemakers to each other, that are providing feedback to the winemakers themselves, like, hey, this year's harvest I didn't like as much, it's too acidic or whatever, and the winemakers value that feedback enormously, right? Also the other way, like, this is the best harvest yet.
Yeah, we'll have both, please. Yeah.
And they like that even more, right? So it's a community-led business, right? So I think, like, that's our unfair advantage. I think that over a few years we lost sight of that, and I'm very happy that we've now put that front and center across the company, and that we're rebuilding with that as our foundation.
Yeah, we'll come back, because I think we work in across a lot of sectors, and it's very interesting how community is becoming. I mean, it's always been there, but it's suddenly becoming front and center for a lot of brands that maybe don't have the budgets to outspend their competition.
Yeah.
They can be very smart by getting an engaged client base that then realizes that they're part of something. And you've sort of been ahead of the curve on that model. A lot of like sports brands and nutrition brands are working with they're doing run clubs, they're doing walking, they're doing all these things.
Yeah.
It's to get people together around a brand. But that's been the whole plan since day one, hasn't it, for the business?
I think that's true. I think that was a part of the design from day one. I think that has been more prevalent in different moments in our history. Mm. I like to think that it's very prevalent today.
Yes.
And that we're representing that fairly and consistently to all our stakeholders. It's a privilege that we have as a business, but it's also a massive responsibility to take care of that community, to protect it, to enhance it over time.
Yeah.
And we take that very seriously, obviously.
Brilliant. So when they came knocking on your door in Belgium to say, come and join us, what state was Naked Wine in? Did it need some help? You were saying, I think some of the stuff you had to do was to make some big decisions, not quite from day one, but certainly coming into the business.
Yeah, I mean, Naked was not in its finest hour when I joined.
Yeah.
That's probably a kind way of putting it, right? But as I said, like the approach to the category immediately interested me. When I learned about the model, I was like, man, this is so cool.
Yeah.
And then the people, right? Like I had interviews as with any recruitment process, but it felt much more like conversations than interviews. And I don't know, they were supposed to last 45 minutes and they ended up lasting 3 hours.
It's a bit like my podcast.
But that's not an exaggeration. That happened more than once. And then I was very lucky because we do a tasting tour every year.
I was going to ask that later on. Yeah, I'm sure if you need any help, we'd be up for that.
You're more than invited. It's honestly, it's unbelievable. Yeah. So it's 10 cities in 11 days across the UK. And we take 30 winemakers, 35 winemakers to all these venues where our angels come to see them. And I was invited to go to the tasting tour.
This was before you took the role?
Before I joined. And I went to an event in London. And I was like, okay, you invited me, I'll go, right? But I didn't have like any real expectation.
You were being polite,
of what I was going to see. And honestly, it blew me away. Right? Like I remember calling my wife that night to say, like, I've never seen engagement like this. And I come from, like, I've worked with some of the world's biggest beer brands, right? Yeah. Corona, Stella, Budweiser. I thought, like, man, I know engagement.
I've seen that, yeah.
And it's like, I've never seen anything like that. Like the energy of the angels, the Naked team, and the winemakers coming together was unbelievable. So then I said, like, okay, I'm coming.
I get it.
I'm here.
I get it. I've seen it. Yeah. So that whatever you were facing overtook that because you just saw in that moment the potential of where the business could be going. Yeah.
I mean, I came to understand the gravity of our financial situation in much more depth after I joined. But I had a very strong belief, like, okay, if we can get the company through this very challenging phase, like there's a future for this business, right? If we can like recenter, refocus around community, around that connection, the craft, we can rebuild. And thankfully, that's been the case. It was very tough. Like I don't want to make light of it. When I took over as CEO, that was our highest priority, right? To ensure the financial foundation of the business. Our finance team did an amazing job in securing new credit facilities, negotiating with different financial partners. And once that stability was achieved, we could start to rebuild, refocus, and I think we've made a lot of progress these past 12 months.
2-year period as well to see that, or less, because you're.
Yeah, I would say it's 14, 15 months since we got that secured. I think a lot of progress has been made since then, but obviously there's still a lot of room to grow. So yeah, that's our focus. You mentioned before we started recording, right? Like we've made some big shifts in terms of strategy, like how are we attracting customers, how we are shifting resources, not only to acquire them, but to retain them, to meet their expectations, to restore their confidence, to recenter around the winemaker stories and bringing them to life, being very focused on enhancing that connection, which was lost after COVID. Right? So
I assume COVID was good. I know it's a stereotype to say.
The start of COVID was amazing for Naked Wines, as for many other companies. I was in the DTC space.
So everyone's at home. What do we do today? Let's order some wine.
The start was great. I think that Naked, as well as again many other companies. I was in beer.
You're not alone in this.
Exactly. Like we all thought, like this is now the new normal, right? Demand is going to stay. It's going to grow from here.
That's it. We sorted this business thing out.
But that's not what happened, right? Like demand came crashing down after the lockdowns ended, and Naked was overstocked, right? Like I think what made Naked's challenges even more acute was that wine is a slow moving category, right? Like from the moment you grow the fruit to the moment you sell a bottle, like a lot of time goes by, right? And a lot of the deals that were made at the time were multi-year, right? So that made it particularly challenging and obviously created financial liquidity concerns for the company. So in that situation, Naked, in order to survive, I don't mean this as a criticism, but in order to survive, had to move away from telling the winemaker story and instead finding ways to push inventory out the door quickly. So the communication went from engagement to transaction, right? Like buy this wine today with this discount. And that works for a while, but eventually it doesn't.
But it creates a transaction, doesn't it, rather than a customer? And I think everything you've said up to now in the podcast has been about your passion for the customer and the client and understanding what you bring together.
Yeah.
And was that the time when you felt like you got a voucher from either your business or anybody with every mail order package you got, and it just felt like it was nothing, it was just always going to be one coming around the corner, so why act nearly?
I mean, it's always funny, right? Because we talk about the voucher, we send this check to people's homes, right? And at the end, they performed terribly. Right? Like circulation was down. When people received them, they immediately threw them on the trash, right? Like the response rate fell off a cliff. Now, 10 years ago, when this channel was launched by Naked, it was amazing, right? So I think the learning is like, you need to learn when to sunset things. This is a channel that should have been exited before, and Naked remained over-invested in it for much longer than it should, right? So that's something that we have moved away. It took over a year for us to fully detach from that channel. And at the same time, we're behind on the adoption of other channels, right? So now we're having to catch up to get our performance on par with other DTC companies. That's important, but I think that's what's most important is that we go back to our growth being led by our community. Naked used to grow because angels told their friends, their family about Naked, right? That's the only that's the only sustainable growth mechanism, word of mouth, exactly, right? Naked had that in spades as it moved away from the emotional to the transactional that was lost.
Yeah.
And that's the magic we're trying to bring back. And the response from Angels so far has been very, very positive. So just in these past couple of months, we launched 2 campaigns. One of our winemakers sadly passed away last year, Arco from South Africa. And he was making some wine at the moment this happened. A very dear friend of his, Johan, who's also a winemaker of us, decided to overlook that, to see that to completion. And anyway, those wines were ready to ship this summer. So we launched a campaign to our angels saying like, this is a homage to Arco, right? Like this is his wines, and all the profits from these wines are gonna go to his daughter and paying for her education. And Angels like immediately, like we sold out in I don't know how many days, right? Like they showed up immediately, and the answer was like, yes, this is what Naked's all about.
Yeah.
And the other
saw
example,
the brand alive in one moment.
Exactly.
Yeah.
That was the phrasing, right? Like it's not my phrase that bring the magic back. That's the phrase a lot of our angels use. Like this is the magic, right?
Beautiful.
And the other example is over the summer, there were some big fires in the Languedoc in the south of France. And one of our longest tenured winemakers, Katie Jones, she actually, her winery was vandalized, I don't know, 10, 12 years ago, and she was going to go out of business. But Naked did a campaign and said, Angels, this is what happens. Will you support Katie? And they immediately did. So thankfully, Katie's winery was safe from the fire, but a lot of her neighbors weren't as lucky.
Yeah.
Right. So they are not our winemakers, but she still came to Naked and said, like, we need to help these people, right? Can Naked do something? So we went to our angels and said, like, listen, like these people need help. If you're willing to buy a certain amount of cases, we will find a way to get their products to you, to support them through this tough time. And again, angels showed up in spades, and that's a fact that is happening, right? So
that must be exciting for you as a team, though, to think that that's been laid there for a few years. Well, like you say, I've admitted the business has got a couple of things wrong, the focus has not been right. And now that you've hopefully started to rectify and put that base back in to grow the business, the story's there. It just needs to be re-amplified using new channels and new ways of telling the story.
I think you're absolutely right. And internally we saw it, right? Like this restored a lot of pride within our team.
Okay, yeah.
Like this is a company I signed up for.
Yeah.
Right. Of course, these are highly capable people, right? They could be working anywhere, right? They work here because they believe in this cause. So yeah, to see that like brought to life in such like a clear, compelling way through these campaigns, and obviously there are more examples, is super energizing.
But that's just to see that spark, like you say, keeps everybody going when it's been tough. They probably get worried and nervous and think, no, we have got something special here. So in terms of obviously that time, like you say, you're not out of the woods, but you've started to build that platform again now. The financial stability is there. What can you see in terms of growth? Is it that idea of continuing to do what you do good and let your customers be your advocates and grow it that way? Is that how you can see this now that you're now a nice organic growth, but just by making sure people are educated correctly as to what you offer?
I think growth starts with retention. Most people think growth equals acquisition, how many customers you're bringing in, but you can get quite good at acquiring customers, but if you're not retaining them, you're never going to grow, right? So the opposite is much more powerful, because if you get good at retaining your customers, acquisition is easy because they're doing much of the heavy lifting around that, right? So I strongly believe that. I think that's a shared perspective across Naked. But it does require resetting internal processes, changing some mechanisms that were created through this challenging liquidity constraint period, right? So dialing that back, it takes time. I think that's the thing, right? Like obviously, as CEO, I'd like everything to move much faster.
Yesterday.
It takes time, but I think there's true belief across the company behind this strategy. And when you do the campaign, when you see the angels' reaction, like that only gets reaffirmed, right? So I think the more we do it, the stronger the drive is going to be to do the next thing even punchier, even bigger, right? To restore the magic in a more impactful way. So I think it takes time to stop certain dynamics, and it takes time to start the new dynamics to push the boulder down the hill. But once it creates momentum, it goes faster every time. So I think we're at that tipping point where like the flywheel is starting to spin again. And our ambition, right, at this moment is not to grow to double the size of the company, right? Like that comes later, right? Our ambition right now is to make sure that our existing customers are super satisfied with Naked Wines. That they feel as strongly about Naked as they did 8 years ago or wherever, right? Like if we can nail that, all the following stages are going to be much easier.
I think it is. Just listening to you there, you realize there's a responsibility to rebuild confidence everywhere with both angels and with your growers and your producers. And that's not going to be like, oh, I'm here, I'm all sorted. It's going to be about a consistent set of behaviors, isn't it? To prove people, and they'll see and then they'll feel it, but hopefully they'll also feel part of it.
Yeah. I mean, a word we use a lot internally is co-creation, right? How can we get our angels to co-create? So we have, again, an amazing example. We have one of our oldest tenured winemakers, Ben Darno, and he's making a wine with one of our angels.
Brilliant.
So in the tasting tour, we had angels come up with different experiments. Ben tasted all of them, and the one that won, that was chosen the winner, he went to France with Ben, and they're making wine together, right? So that's an extreme example. But over Naked's history, angels have chosen what regions to explore at the very start, what winemakers to fund, the wines these winemakers were launching, the names of those wines, the labels of those wines, in some moments even the price of those wines.
It's incredible, isn't it?
It's incredible, right? And the cynic perspective is like, man, if you give your customers a chance to choose the price, they're always going to choose the lowest one, right? That's not what happened. No. Actually, oftentimes they chose the highest one. Like, no, for this quality,
the fairness to come back into it.
So for this quality, we should be paying X, right? And that way, the winemaker makes his living. He continues to focus on getting this wine into my hands, right? So again, that's super powerful, right? If we can restore it, harness it, then growth from there, in my view, is inevitable. But you have to respect the sequence.
Yeah. But with time, that will come. That's so exciting, isn't it? That there's everything's sort of in place, isn't it now? And it's just about spreading that word, which sounds straightforward, but it's not. But
it's not.
At least you've got the story to tell.
Yeah, I think that's true. I think we've. It's about going back to basics in many ways, right? Like this is not a revolution. It's not inventing something new. It's like reconnecting with what made Naked special in the first place and updating it.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah. 2025 is not the same as 2015 or 2010, right?
Or 2026.
So exactly. Now the change of pace is faster than ever, right? So of course you have to make sure that the company is evolving, and Naked didn't evolve in many ways. So that needs to be addressed. But on the other hand, it's about like going back to what made this company special from day one.
Brilliant.
So I think again, right? Like I'm always going to be unsatisfied, right? But at the same time, it's important to acknowledge the progress that has taken place this last year.
I have a question for you then, because obviously you had those wonderful interviews and you came in and you realised that the situation that Naked was in. From your experience, did you have an idea of how you would come up with a solution before you really got to know the business deeply to understand what there was this magic going on that's maybe driven the actual strategy to? I know you had to do some very grown-up financial things that we all know that has to happen. But has that surprised you both that it is an option as a solution?
I had one thing very clear from the moment I joined. I was asked to give a presentation 2 weeks after joining, and the topic of my presentation was customer centricity.
Right.
Like it was very clear to me that Naked, because of the situation and the challenges it was facing, had stopped focusing and obsessing with the customers. So that was immediate, right? Yeah. And again, like it takes time to rebuild. The financial, the boring stuff you mentioned, that took me much longer to understand. Like I don't have a finance background.
Yeah.
I mean, I've led business units. Like I know how to run a business, but I had to spend a lot of hours with our CFO, like really like going deep and understanding. And again, the model is quite peculiar. That creates some financial complexity. So that took me a while to fully grasp. On the commercial customer side, it was much clearer for me from day one.
From that, when you did that tour, that obviously planted the seed that suddenly you realised there's the answer.
Correct.
It's exciting though, isn't it? You know, as we talked about our age and our experience, it's exciting when you're learning how much fun whatever you've done before is, isn't it? Because it's like, this is new. Here's a new challenge. And then it gives you a sort of energy, even though most people might be terrified and think there's a steep mountain to climb. I think.
I mean, it is terrifying some days. Right?
Okay, good honesty.
I won't lie, but no, I fully agree. It's, as I said at the start, it's an exciting category. It's fun. There's so much to learn. Every aspect of the business. I mean, I'm a wine novice.
Yeah.
Right. I've been with Naked 2 years, and I still consider myself a wine novice. Like I'm very early in my learning curve. And when I get handed the wine menu, like this guy's the CEO of a wine company, right? Like
He's gonna get the good stuff. Yeah.
I still get nervous, but now I'm energized by it.
Yeah.
Right. And it's like, okay, now I know. Now I've tried this new grape.
You've developed an understanding. Yeah.
And I'm starting to feel much more confident about what I like. And the moment you start feeling that way, your whole perspective of the category changes.
Yeah.
So
you become hungry, don't you, for more and more knowledge and information.
Definitely.
So in terms of the markets, am I right in thinking that the business operates in the UK, Australia, and US? Is that
Correct.
Right? Yeah. And is that an intentional three? I mean, they're all English speaking, I'm sure. Or is that one of the drivers for it?
I mean, Naked is a UK founded company, right? Mm-hmm. It started here. It did well basically from the start. It grew quite fast. Obviously, America was a priority, right? Like the size of the market.
It's quite big.
It's super big. So a priority was to launch Naked in the US, which is super complex, right? Like the US, from a regulatory compliance perspective, it's not a country, it's 50 countries, right? So
each with its own rules, regulations, taxations, everything to navigate.
Exactly. It took a while to set up, but that was very deliberate. Australia, I think it was more circumstantial because a couple of employees from Naked were Australian and moved back.
Right.
And it was like, why not?
We could do this thing here. Yeah.
And it was launched and it grew quite fast there too. So the business quickly found its footing across the three markets. Mm-hmm. Obviously, after COVID, like the problems of being like a global company across very different market circumstances across wide time zones makes things interesting in many ways. But I think that our setup is a good setup, right? Like we leverage our position in the 3 different countries to the benefit of the global strategy. We have talented teams across all 3 markets. So other than having to take late night calls with whenever
it becomes
we
a long day when you got Australia and the US on your clock.
Exactly. Whenever we want to get everyone together, that's late night calls. But other than that, it works for us.
And would there be, in the foreseeable future, obviously not for now, but an opportunity to look at other markets in terms of across either Europe or?
That's a question we ask ourselves often, more as a thought exercise at this moment, right? Like I don't think that'd be the right decision for Naked in our current circumstance. But I think it's good to always be thinking about those possibilities and how we could go about it. There are a couple of markets that we all agree that could be a better fit from both a consumer demand perspective and an operational feasibility point of view. I won't say which ones they are.
Save that for the next episode.
Yes.
Yeah.
So it's something we think about.
It's good. I mean, most people will be over the moon to be in 3 such great and diverse markets. But I can see the ambition there.
And there's a lot of room to grow within the 3 markets we're in, right? So that time will come for international expansion, but it's not now.
Yeah. So we talked a lot about getting trust. Let's talk a bit about you. How do you go about coming in? Obviously, yes, you've been in the alcohol industry, we've understood that, but maybe coming in from the outside, not being a wine snob, as we've called them. How have you gone about trying to build trust that you were the right guy to guide the business forward?
That's a good question. I mean, I never pretended to be something or someone I'm not. Right. So from the moment I joined with my team, I was upfront like, man, I know nothing about wine. Right. Like I'm here to learn. This is what I do know about. Right. This is how I think I can help. This is why I'm here. I think it's important for people to hear that. Right. Like, why did this guy?
What did they say to you?
Come
what was he
from beer in the current circumstance? I guess it was a bit weird, the timing. But I was very open, and my experience with the Naked team was they gave me their trust from day one, and I did the same. So I that wasn't a struggle.
That's great. And do you think it's because, I mean, you've worked in Mexico, you've worked in Europe, you've worked in the UK, all quite different cultures out there in terms, I know you've most recently only been in the UK for a couple of years, but how have you found that the fact that you did come from that sort of diverse background in terms of experience, that actually helped you sort of fit in because you'd realised you've dealt with everything when you got here, sort of thing?
Yeah, that's another great question. I mean, I worked in Mexico, all across Mexico, then in Latam, the Caribbean, Central America, Peru, Ecuador, Colombia. And I think Latin people are, obviously there are differences, but we're fairly standard, right? And then when I moved to Europe, I was amazed, just like Belgium, Netherlands, Germany, Italy, Denmark, like the countries I oversaw. And it's like, man, they cannot be so different, right? I mean, this is like a fraction of Mexico. Right?
It's like a few miles down the road.
Exactly. And the cultural difference, like the attitudes, like are so different. And the UK is also very different from continental Europe. So it is super interesting. Mm-hmm. It is, I'm very curious about why people act in certain ways or think about things in certain ways. Communication is challenging. I mean, I worked in Leuven, right? Like the culture in Leuven is like I thought Spaniards, like my family, were super direct. No. Then I worked with the Flemish and the people from the Netherlands. Like those people are like, I've never met anyone that's more direct, right?
There's no sugarcoating the messages there.
Brutal, right? The UK is different in that regard, right? Like you have a way of speaking, and certain words mean certain things in certain context. And for a guy for whom English is his second language, like it took me a long time to like, and not that I've mastered it, not by a long shot, right? But it took me a long time of like, oh, the way she said it means this.
Yeah, so actually was a compliment.
I interpreted it the other way, right? So yeah, that's challenging. I mean, it's fun. It's fun in many ways, and it's so interesting in many ways. But in other ways, like at the end of the day, my first 3 months at Naked, also like I came from a company, English was the language, but it was mostly the second language for everyone.
For everybody, yeah. It was just a common language everybody used. Exactly. Yeah.
So if I'm talking and I make a mistake, I'm talking with a Brazilian, he's making his mistakes, and a Croatian, she's making her mistakes, right? Then you join a company where you're the only people for whom English is a second language. And it's also British. Like I was used to American accents being from Mexico. British is very sophisticated, very intimidating. So the first 3 months I was like, I tried my best to not make mistakes. And I got home at night and I was like dead.
I've blown it, yeah.
At some point I was like, man, I cannot care so much. I'm gonna have to trust the people to understand what I'm saying. Yeah. But if I like continue to operate this way,
like I'm gonna overthink everything you're saying. Yeah. Well, you seem to be doing a good job so far. Pretty good on
now this. That I care less, probably do a better job.
Well, it's interesting, isn't it? Like if you overthink it, sometimes you end up just restricting what you actually were going to say. And so, have you enjoyed that period of not only understanding a business but understanding a new culture? Because you've got a family, haven't you? So are they with you in the UK now?
Yes.
So you've got that pressure going on too.
So my family moved with me from Mexico to Brussels, and from Brussels to Cambridge. I couldn't do it without them. And honestly, like the hero of that story is my wife. Yeah. Right? Like she's the one that makes not only the moves but the settling in and the routine setups work. So yeah,
it's always good to shout out the boss. I always find always important.
Yes.
But it is, and it's interesting though. If you've got that stability, it gives you the freedom then to achieve everything here at the business, isn't it? Which is brilliant.
Yeah, I mean, I before moving to Europe, like I spoke with a couple of people, and one of which had his family didn't settle well.
Yeah,
and that basically ruined the whole appointment for him at work, right? Because if your family is not well, you cannot do well.
Yeah.
Right. So, and the other one had like the opposite experience, right? Like my family like landed on their feet, and that allowed me to go all in at work. So both gave me the same advice: like make sure that the wife, the kids are settled.
Yeah.
Because that's going to be what sets you up for success professionally. And
I think it's important to cover it because it's, none of us are islands. It's a very interconnected world now, and it's always on, and you've got to be able to think of that wider, that we are human beings, and all your team are as well. Of course. All of your customers are, and all of your, and this, if you can get that insight and bring it in, I think you become a much better leader that people want to follow. So do you think that change because of the jobs you've had to do at Naked, has your leadership style developed? Have you suddenly realized, oh, I'm doing that now that I didn't do before? Or have you managed to keep pretty true to the core Maza proposition?
That's a very good question. I think that probably my leadership philosophy had evolved before joining Naked.
Yeah.
There's something that I always talk about when discussing leadership, right? And it's high alignment, high autonomy.
Okay.
So what I mean by that is sometimes people think that those two are like opposites, right? Either you're aligned or you're autonomous. but actually that's not the way it works. The more aligned you are as a company, as a team, the more autonomy you can grant people, right? So I came across that philosophy when I moved to the e-commerce ETC space, and it served me very well because it was the first time that I had tech developers reporting into me. Like, what am I going to say to a tech developer? Right? Like,
how are we connecting? Yeah.
So there's no functional guidance that I can provide, right? So it was very much like, you'll figure out how to do it, but I need to help you understand exactly what we're aiming for, right? Like, what are we building? How will we know that we're getting there, right? And what's the role that you play? And I think like that philosophy served me very well when I joined Naked, right? Because again, like I knew nothing about wine, about the way the company worked on the day-to-day even, right? So it was never about me coming in and telling people how to do things. They're the experts, not me. It was more about challenging, like, what are we orienting ourselves towards? And I think that was the right fit.
It sounds like, again, listening to your answers, it sounds like that openness, and I suppose also that ability that people naturally in this organization want to share knowledge about the wine, knowledge about the wine growers, the areas, that the fact if you came in and said, I haven't got all the answers, probably brought the team tight together to go, right, this suddenly we're all going to do this together.
Yeah, that's very likely the case.
Because not everybody does that, and can sometimes, back to your intimidation with the wine menu, wine list, if somebody comes in, if you come in as a leader and you go, right, I've got all this sorted, and you go into your office and they don't hear from you for a while, at first they'll give you some time, but after a while when they're going, he's not asked me what I do, or isn't it?
Yeah.
You need a team, don't you? You can't do this alone.
And they're going to figure out that you don't.
They'll smell the fear.
I mean, I could have come in and said like, oh yeah, I have all the answers for wine, right? 2 months later, they would have realized like, man, this guy's full of shit.
Where is it? Yeah.
Right. So yeah, I didn't think it like that. I don't know. I just think it's exhausting to pretend to be something you're not. Yeah. Like I don't like it. I don't see any value in it.
No. You can't keep it up, can you? Your natural personality will always come through.
I agree.
So, go on then. You said you admitted you weren't a wine buff when you joined Naked. You've learnt quite a lot in 2 years.
Yeah. And I said like, I don't know anything, and I'm gonna ask very stupid questions, and I did. And that's people were super patient and super excited to help,
to share. Yeah.
I think that speaks about Naked, but also about the category, right? Like, wine tends to be like, okay, like now I know about wine. Like I'm in the club. I want to close the door behind me, right? And Naked what we want is to be the least exclusive wine club in the world.
Share. Yeah.
Right? Like I want to bring my friends, my family, everyone in. Right? Yeah. And when I went to Toby, our wine director, to our wine advisors, and asked these very basic questions, I was never met to like, oh, how can you ask that? It was like, man,
sit down,
taste this. This is what you'll notice. Oh, come, let me show you this map. This is the region you're tasting. This is what makes the region special. And like every question like sparks 3 more questions, right? So again, wine should be fun, right? And when you approach it that way, it's super fun. Yeah. But when you're snobbish and when you're parochial about it, like you're killing it, right? So again, I love that about Naked, that it challenges that approach.
Brilliant. So have you found at the moment, have you got a favorite wine or a favorite wine region that you, in your discovery, that you're going, you obviously won't settle. You've tried everything, I'm sure.
Well, I've tried all the regions, but not all of our winemakers, and certainly not all of our wines. Like it's a lot. Honestly, like I change, right? Like, but I think France would be my go-to. And probably Chateauneuf du Pape is number
Classic.
1 for me. Like, I am a big red type of guy, but at the same time, like, I love New Zealand whites, for example, right?
Yeah.
So it's what I said at the start. You've come to understand, like, there's always a moment, a season, the type of gathering you're having, like all these things play a role. So that would be my favorite. But if you double click and you say, like, okay, but in certain moment, I would probably say, like, oh no, actually not at all, right?
Yeah, I'm sure it'll change in 3 months when you try some more.
Exactly. Like,
what a great job. Everyone's very jealous now, thinking that's what you got to do.
I'm lucky. I'm very lucky.
Fantastic. Well, look, as usual, we've come to the time far too quickly. We always finish on one question, which is to look at young Maza when he was in Mexico starting his career. After all that experience that you've had, whether it's just in the last 2 years or whether it's in the other places, what is a bit of killer advice? Really, you're advising my sons, but I'm asking you to your younger self. What's a killer bit of advice you'd give yourself that would help them on their career and life journey?
Yeah, I was recently asked this question, and it's a very tough question because there's so many, but I'll stick with my answer, and it's I'd recommend my younger self to chill a bit more. And by that I mean to stop being in such a hurry.
Okay.
For things to happen, for achievements to be met, and to be more grateful. I guess that's the main point. I don't think I take enough time to recognize all the many blessings that I have and that I've had through most of my life, because I'm always in such a rush.
Okay.
So
enjoy that journey a little bit more.
Yes.
Take a little bit of time.
So that's the advice I'd give my younger self, and it's the advice that I'll give myself tonight, right? Because I'm still working on it. But
we're always working on it.
Yeah.
Maza, that has been so interesting. Thank you for sharing your story.
No, thank you for inviting me. It's been a pleasure.
And we will look forward to the next 5 years of growth, hey?
Let's see.
Thank you.